Welcome back. It's Lionel, tech lead and partner at Westfold. And today I'm talking to you about a video that was very interesting. It just came out on Slidebean's main channel. It popped up on my YouTube feed and it was about Caya, I think that's how you pronounce his name, actually discussing failure in Slidebean. And for those that you don't know, Caya is one of the most, I would say, quite well followed entrepreneurs on YouTube.
We founders need to learn to give up, to realize that we sometimes are wrong, and to choose whether we want to pivot or persevere.
Especially on his startup called Slidebean. I find it very genuine. I find his experiences very relevant to what I normally see in the market. And I see that he actually shares a lot of very key information, especially another video that he put up about marketing and all the methods of marketing. And today, I want to talk to you on why PHP is the most excellent language for startups and how his experience coincides nicely explaining this whole process of why PHP is number one. Now, going into detail about the thing, I'll put a little excerpt of clips about his experience and you can check the full video in my description below. But basically, Caya talks about a couple of things in startup that is very relevant to PHP. And the first one is that most startups fail. So what does that have to do with PHP, right? Now, I'm not talking about the whole entire startup, but you gotta realize that your first idea, first concept, first draft is probably not gonna work. And you don't want to be spending too much time or effort, or you want to get it out as soon as possible. I meet a lot of clients, right? Especially the walk through the door. If they manage to get through the door, they are falling in love with their first idea. You know, it's fully thick, it's full of ideas, it's full of features, it's full of all this kind of stuff. They're gonna marry it, live till 80, and it's gonna make them billions of dollars. They'll be Mark Zuckerberg, they'll be Even Spiegel, they'll marry a supermodel, they'll build a $20 million house. Look, chaps, this probably not gonna happen. It's gonna be an evolutionary process. It's going to be a long journey. So when these guys come in, they start thinking about software and they ask big questions like, is it stable? Can I scale to 1 billion users? And things like that, which look, it's not relevant. These are irrelevant. So other languages out there, like the Javas and the Nodes and whatever, you know, they are so focused on scaling and so focused on building that big thing the first time right. But when you look at Caya...
So the way we found a way to approach this was doing little experiments that didn't mean a huge time commitment or a huge pivot for everyone in the company, but just an option for our ideas to see the light of day, right? So we tested a product called Avocado, for example. It had the idea to put our AI presentation engine for another use to create ads and design them in all the formats. And we followed a lean startup approach. We made a little video and we put it on YouTube to see how people would react. But honestly, nobody got too excited about it. And we understood that we weren't in a good position to tackle that market. So
He says two things. One, most of them fail. Two, they had to pivot a lot. And three, they had to do a lot of experiments. And I'll tell you why PHP is the most excellent for all three of these things. First, because most of them fail, right? You don't want to spend a lot of time and you don't want to spend a lot of money. Now, when it comes to software development, right? You guys know, PHP is probably the most rapid development language. You can spend $5 a month on a server, right? You don't have to have AWS. You can get A2 hosting on one of these things and rapidly develop your project. You can rapidly speed it because you need to probably make 2 or 3 iterations of this. And this is the point. You want rapid speed, and that's what PHP is all about. So that is why you want a whole language that can actually accelerate this process rather than worrying about, you know, is it done in the most perfect way? Is it really scalable? I know a lot of you guys are worried that, you know, if you get successful, there will be a problem, but I don't see an issue. I think you can just rewrite the whole thing and re-rip it. So that is the first reason why you want something. You want something that is inexpensive. And that's PHP. Like if you look at the pricing in PHP, it is one of the most affordable languages to develop. You can get a software developer. There are lots of software developers out there. Now, I know some of you guys are like, oh, some of these are really dodgy crap, guys. Again, it's market pricing. I'll talk about that more in detail about another video, but most of the time, the failure is going to be from the idea side, not really the coding side if you got a decent developer. The second reason is speed. You want the fastest development process because you're going to do a lot of these things, right? You're going to be doing pivots and experiments. Now, experiments especially, right? You need to go faster because the faster you know, the faster you can build on that. PHP has a huge library. It's the most open source. It's very established. Almost 84% of the web is using this kind of stuff. So you're going to be able to make use of components of code and develop very quickly. A lot of people are talking about, Golang or some sort of thing like Svelte or React. Look, the ecosystem is not as open source as PHP, right? If you were to go, you could find just less than a few projects. You're not really sure which frameworks are there. You're probably going to have a problem actually building up those integrations. But with PHP, you can jump out, grab a framework, any of the top 5, Y2, Laravel, Symfony, any one of these frameworks will accelerate that process and all the plugins that come alongside with it. What you're trying to do is not create the final product. What you're trying to do is quickly make a mock-up, an idea, and test your market, test the idea, test the functionality of this. And then once you establish, right, then maybe decide if you want to go and build it in a chain, if you want to go into microservices, if you want to do all this stuff once it works. Stop building everything from the beginning in scaling up to one. And that's what PHP is really good. You can go with a monolith structure, everything in the same place, test everything out, and then scale from there if the idea works. And the third reason is the availability of people and expertise. One of the big problems that I hear, right, that people are not expecting because, developers, we don't talk so much about it, is what if you run out of talent? And that's the scary part, right? That you go for something that is really in the higher end where the developers are getting paid more money. There is a shortage of these guys. I mean, they are getting paid more money for a reason. And that's because of just the good old-fashioned supply and demand, right? And one of the worst things is that you're running a startup and you're not the most funded startup in town. You're not the richest startup in town. And I've seen it so much. I've seen it with so many clients, right, who have gone down very difficult routes, Spring Boot, Java, maybe some Ruby, and they cannot get their developers. They can't because these are either too popular or too difficult. No one's learning the thing. And literally the startup is, floating in the ocean, like as one founder said, without an engine, just hoping for sales, the winds to blow it because there are no developers available. This is one of the big concerns that you need to look at when you're doing a startup or medium-sized company. Is there a big pool of developers? Because if you don't get this talent, especially now in COVID times where everybody's scrambling to digitize, if you're not online, you're not alive. You need to make sure you have access to this pool. Now, a lot of people may complain about the quality of a PHP developer, and I understand it's quite frustrating when you can't get, the variant because it's such a big community of people, coverage of people, that you're bound to get, quality shortages, especially in a couple of countries, where they're not too bothered about the quality. But think about this other way, right? What if you have no developers? Right? What happens if you don't have anybody working on it? You can't get anything. Your project stalls 100% completely. Instead of actually just pushing out an idea, maybe it's a bit banged up, maybe it's a bit rough, and testing it, and then maybe after that changing your language, raising a lot more money and solidifying it. I like this word, you rather fail and fail fast than wait around for stuff to happen. So that is a key consideration. And PHP meets all three of these criteria. Number one, it's very inexpensive. It's got the most affordable servers. They won't take you for a ride. If you want Go or you want something Node.js or Python or whatever these guys is, there's a lot of configuration on the server side. You cannot get it out of the box. It's very expensive. You can get a served host cheap, affordable, anywhere. You can even jump all the way to GoDaddy or something like that if you're not comfortable, and pay $4 to $5 or $2 for even shared hosting if you really want to test, just test an idea. So it's very inexpensive. It's got a lot of open source stuff, and the developers are not that expensive. So that's the first one. Number two, rapid development. Again, lots of community, lots of stuff out there. You can plug and play, quickly link up the thing and roll it up. I do not know any other ecosystem as wide as the PHP ecosystem. A lot of people talk about WordPress, complain about WordPress. From a coding side, I as well complain about. But if there is some sort of content idea that you want to test, WordPress will get you rapidly where you want to go. And then from there, you can then funnel out, you can start pivoting. So that's the second one. And finally, the third, availability of talent. Very important, guys. Don't be caught. The worst thing is that here you are with a limited pool of money and you're discussing, you can't get candidates. Your startup is finito, finished, gone. It's floating around without an engine. That's what the guy said. So these are what makes PHP the excellent language in startup for MVP, both for pivoting and for actually creating experiments, quick ones. Go into a project, don't think too much about, roll out the price, test the market, doesn't work, throw it away, go again. And then once it works right, once it starts getting traction and it makes sense and you got the fit market, and as what Caya says in the video, you got that stage right, then it's time to move to the next level and talk about all the other architecture things that we've been discussing. But before that, the number one language is PHP. And guys, that's the bottom line because the tech lead said so.